In Chapter 3, we continue to use Excel to solve energy problems. We discovered that the questions in the textbook can be pretty unclear as to what is wanted and just how to get there. So to help in this matter, I've decided to try a new approach. I'm going to show you the information that's given to me, the instructor's guide. This is the solutions manual. And then, with those added notes, you'll create the Excel spreadsheet that's going to calculate to come up with the same answers. You're not going to be able to merely enter data so it looks the same, because you'll have to send me that spreadsheet and I'll have to verify that you have the equations correct. You'll find that the notes in the solutions manual, as shown here, are much more helpful than some of the things that we read in the chapter or in the original question. So here's the question stated. The Ajax Manufacturing Company, there are 6 large exhaust fans that are constantly running to exhaust general plant air, not localized heavy pollution. They're each powered by 30 horsepower electric motors that have loads of 27 kilowatts each. You find that they can be turned off periodically with no adverse effects. You can place them in a central timer so that each one is turned off for 10 minutes each hour. At any one time, one of the fans is off and the other 5 are running. The fans operate for 10 hours a day, 250 days a year. Assume that the company is on the rate schedule shown in Figure 3-10 of the text. Neglect any ratchet clauses. The company is on service level 3, which is distribution service. Now, there may be significant HVAC savings since conditioned air is being exhausted, but we're going to ignore that for now. So that's the same problem we read in the back of our textbook on page 609. So they give the rates. Okay, that's helpful that it's all right here. We don't have to dig back in the book and find out what they were. So the off and on peak demand charge rates are listed here. And they show that the on-peak is for June through October, which is 5 months. Off-peak would be November through May, which is the remaining 7 months. The cost of the energy used itself is listed here. So for the first 2 million kilowatt hours, it's a high rate, and then anything over that, the rate drops down to just barely over 3 cents a kilowatt hour. Now here's the stuff that didn't show up in the problem or in the reading. And these assumptions sort of make sense after we read them. Since they've got these 2 huge fans, or these 6 huge fans, we can assume that they use well over 2 million kilowatt hours per month, doing the other things that they're doing. The fuel cost adjustment rate is going to be 0 since the utilities fuel cost is at the base rate. We read about that back in the description. Since they're in production, as a business, there will be no sales tax on this energy because it's used for production. Okay? So this is the kind of thing an energy manager is going to know about in a plant. So this is why I'm bringing it up here and letting you learn about them. The power factor is greater than 8, meaning this company knows how important power factor is, and they've made the adjustments with the capacitors so that they are within the 80%. And they also state that there's no franchise fees since the company is outside any municipality. Then he goes on to state these different terms. Demand savings he refers to as DS. And then he makes other reference here to DC, the demand charge, and N, the number of months. So he ends up writing formulas and giving us abbreviations for terms that, again, weren't pointed out or weren't pointed out very clearly in the text. So he actually comes up with the whole answer here. And really what it amounts to is that since one fan is shut off all the time, all we're really calculating for is the amount of energy it takes to run one fan in a year. Now you should be able to come up with this on your spreadsheet. The answers work out quite nicely. And so after you've done that, go ahead and send me that spreadsheet and we'll verify that the math is done correctly. Some other things that he talks about, again, that's in the solutions manual but not in the text, is how much would the timers cost? How much would it cost to install them? Is there a way that we can control it other than with timers? Does cycling the fans on and off cause the life of the fan motors to decrease? And then he asks a couple questions about things that are coming up in the next chapter. What is the simple payback period? What is the net present value? And also the initial rate of return. Those we're going to look at in a couple weeks. So that's this problem. Um, your job then is to send me the spreadsheet that answers that. The next problem, and again, you guys already were assigned this and you're supposed to be turned in by midnight tonight. So the next problem is 3.2. What is the dollar savings for reducing the demand by 100 kilowatts in the off-peak season? All right, so that's the first question. What is it in the off-peak season? But there's a second question built in. And the second question is, what happens if we then cause the 100 kilowatt demand reduction to occur during the peak periods as well? So a lot of calculations there. Notice the explanation is shown. Again, he gives us the charge. The rates, $13.27 a kilowatt for the on-peak, $4.82 for the off-peak. And then he discusses again what the ratchet clause is and the assumptions. Assumptions are, again, the company uses well over 2 million kilowatt hours per month, no fuel cost adjustment, power factor is greater than 8, and he gives us what things would look like, the estimated next year if the 100 kilowatt decreases in the off-peak season. So he actually shows us this information right here, and he sees in this chart how, because during the off-peak season we're already lower than the ratchet charge, so it doesn't matter what we lower it to, we're still going to pay the ratchet charge here for these months. And it's not until we get to, well, none of the off-peak months, because any of the off-peak months are already lower than what the ratchet value is. So that's the first answer. But again, make the spreadsheet show us that information. Now, if we take the 100 kilowatt decrease for the on-peak season, it still won't affect the off-peak season because the ratchet is still going to be higher than that. But look what happens in June. In June, we are going to have a dollar savings because we lowered it from 900 to 800, which lowered it, 100 kilowatts worth. Same thing in July and August and September. Notice what also happened in July, though, is that the demand ratchet rate dropped to become 65% of this new low of 1,000 kilowatts. Right? And so that's going to carry over and give us some demand savings. And you should be able to make the spreadsheet come up with these same answers. So here's a challenge to you. I was able to use my calculator and come up with what the author is showing us here. However, I could not get Excel to do that work for me. The value I came up with was a little bit higher. And I came up with $9,147 as what they would save every year after the first year, not this $8,828. So I'm guessing I did something wrong, and I'm anxious to see what you guys come up with for an answer. And so the last one for week 4 is right here, and that was problem 3.3. Where'd we go? A little too far. Same spreadsheet, which is great because we're going to be able to, again, copy over and the same stuff we were using for 3.2. So in this case, again, the question, I really don't care for how he writes it. How many months would be ratcheted, and how much would the ratchet cost be above the normal billing? Wow, it's not a very clear question. Here's what I think he's asking. I think he's asking this. What would the bill be if the ratchet clause were not enforced at all? And therefore, if I could calculate being charged by purely the demand and not the ratchet cost, if I subtract that from the ratcheted cost, I will then be able to determine the exact amount that the ratchet mechanism or clause is causing me. So that's what I need you guys to know. This is how I'm going to be presenting the information for for the remaining chapters, at least the rest of chapter 3. I want to see how well you respond to being able to have the answers and then use Excel to help you understand what those answers are. I found it to be quite helpful and hope that you do as well. I will post another video or another audio and slide presentation for the answers or for the questions you're going to be assigned this week. And this week you are going to be assigned problems 3.4 through 3.8. That's right, you're going to have 5 different assignments this week. So I look forward to hearing back from you. And again, get in touch with me if you have any questions.